of Walk with YoYo. There are so many people excited to hear about your story here at Keto Superheroes, and I think around the world. So we think it's a pretty universal thing. So welcome. We're excited to hear it.
Thank you very much for this invitation. I'm very, very happy to be here. We're doing some good things, and it's a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you.
Great. So the first most important question everybody's asking is, what was your life story? What brought you to the point where you decided Walk with YoYo was a great idea for other people, first for yourself and then for other people? Can you take us through the long lead up?
Oh, yeah. No, definitely. My therapist once said to me, she looked right at me after I told her my story, and she said, Yonas, you've suffered great trauma in your life. And she goes, until you acknowledge that, moving forward will be nearly impossible. I remember thinking, trauma, what does trauma really mean? It's not as if I have a wound from a serious injury. And I ended up looking up the definition, and, they described it as a disordered psychic or behavioral state, resulting from severe mental or emotional stress or physical injury. And I remember reading that and I was like, wow, that's a mouthful. And instantly I rejected the notion that I had severe mental or emotional stress. I remember thinking, I'm not crazy. Like, that was my first thought. I don't have mental issues. What is she talking about? And it's interesting how triggering the word mental is. And at that moment, I would have rather suffered a physical injury than be labeled as having mental issues. And years later, I would think about what that therapist said, and it still bothered me. And I remember thinking, was there something inherently wrong with me mentally? I couldn't even think of what was so traumatic about my life experiences. But I couldn't really dig deep into those gloomy feelings because I was going to be a dad soon. So a month before my daughter was born, I woke up, and for the first time in months, I decided to check my weight. Get on that scale and see those numbers, 277 pounds. I was distraught. Even though I knew my weight was climbing, I thought I gained maybe 20 pounds, but not 50 pounds. I was always on the chubbier side. Actually, I'm going to be honest. I was fat. I regularly fluctuated in weight. I would lose 40 pounds, gain 50, lose 50, gain another 30, and then so on. But I always wanted to be a dad. Like, that was my dream. To have a house full of kids filled with love and joy. Like, this was going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. But that day, something changed in me. When I saw that number on the scale, I remember feeling just rage and anger, and my mind raced. How am I going to be a great father if I can't even control my own weight? What kind of an example will I be if they see a fat slob who's too tired to play with them? And if I'm not going to do it for myself, if I don't love myself enough to do it, then I need to do it for my daughter. So I remember that morning, put on my shoes, and I went on a 20-minute walk with my dog. Every day, twice a day, rain or shine, I walked. And what started as 20 minutes became 30 minutes, and then it was 45 minutes, an hour, and eventually 2-hour walks. I would listen to music or podcasts, and something strange started happening. More and more during my walks, I'd have my music or my podcast playing, but my brain would just start drifting. And it started drifting to my childhood. My 2-hour walks would be consumed with different stories and experiences that I had hidden away deep in my mind. I was born in Khartoum, Sudan, in East Africa, June 30th, 1982. My parents had just left the war-torn country of Eritrea with a dream to have a family, to have a chance at life. But where we ended up was in the slums of Sudan. My parents found opportunity in Saudi Arabia, but left me behind in Sudan until they could come back to get me. I remember waking up one morning and my mom was just gone. She knew it'd be hard to say goodbye to me, but you know what? I wish she did. I felt like she just left me. And all I had left of her was a blanket wrap. She put me to bed that smelled like her. I would remember crying for her, not knowing where she was and when I'd ever see her again. And I wouldn't let anyone touch that wrap. That wrap and the smell of her on it was the only thing I had. And I would drag around with me 24 hours a day. I didn't know when or if I would ever see her again. And then about a year later, a man arrived at the home I was staying at. As he approached to pick me up and hug me, I realized who it was. It was my dad. So as my dad was sitting and resting, he gave me his watch to play with. I remember taking it and hiding it. Later on, he asked me, he's like, "Why did you hide my watch?" And I told him, "If you don't have your watch, you can't leave." The way the mind of a child works, right? And my dad laughed and hugged me and he said, "No, Jonas, I'm not leaving you. I came to bring you home with me and mommy." I didn't understand where home was or where my mom was, but all I knew was I wanted to be there. So now I'm 3 years old. My dad packs us up. We make our way to the airport. I'm a young kid from the slums of Sudan on his way onto a jumbo jet for the first time. The experience scared me so much. I remember peeing myself at the airport. I didn't know what a plane was or where I was going. All I knew was that I was with my dad and I was going to my mom. So a few hours later, we land in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Everything it was so strange for me. It was so different compared to what I grew up around. And we arrived in front of this huge house and we went inside and a woman stood there before me. And she asked me softly with worry in her voice, she said, "Do you know who I am?" And I looked at her and I answered quietly, "Alganesh." It was my mom. And the relief in her face when she saw her baby didn't forget her was priceless. And over the next few months, I really had a hard time adjusting. The first thing that turned negative in my life was, my relationship with food. I couldn't eat. My poor parents, they didn't have the resources to figure out, why their 3-year-old couldn't eat. There was no Google or books that they could read at the time, right? So the only thing they knew was our son has to eat. So they did what they could do is they try to force me to eat. So if my dad got home from work at 10 p.m. and I'm asleep and he had found out I hadn't eaten all day, he would wake me up to try to force me to eat. It was the only way they knew what to do. My father was a driver and my mom was a maid working for a member of the Saudi royal family. And if they had the resources to take me to a child psychologist, I know exactly what they would have told my parents. They would have said, "Alganesh, Johannes, your son has suffered great trauma in his life. And until you acknowledge that, moving forward will be nearly impossible." And 35 years later, reliving that moment, everything just clicked. I couldn't believe I have to be honest with myself and admit that I've been through some traumatic experiences that affected me mentally and emotionally. And in order for me to figure out why I keep sabotaging myself, I have to understand who I am, how the experiences in my life have shaped me, good or bad. I had to acknowledge it. Now, fast forward to 1990, and now the Gulf War has begun. I was 8 years old. I was about to board a plane with my mom, my 3-year-old sister, and my 8-month-old brother to find freedom in this place I've never heard of before called Canada. I remember looking it up in a map and I just kept moving west. And I'm like, where is this country? Until finally I reached it. I was like, oh my God, that's so far away. I didn't know anything about Canada, but I knew in order to achieve freedom, we had to get there. And my dad was not coming with us. And since I was the only one besides him who was able to speak and read in English, he sat me down and explained that I am the man now, and I had to make sure that our family reached our final destination and he would join us soon. Now, as an 8-year-old kid, I was honored to be given this very important task. Like my family needed me, they depended on me to arrive at freedom, and I listened intently to all the instructions I was told. And I assured my dad, we're gonna make it. We said goodbye, not knowing at that time that we wouldn't be reunited in Canada for another 10 years. The journey was a long one, but we made it and we found freedom in Canada, but we were not whole. By not having my dad, there was always this void in our life. And as the oldest child, there was a lot of pressure, put on me while in Canada. Like I wasn't a kid anymore. I was the man of this house and someone for my mom to lean on. And she was always going through her own struggles. And it's something I didn't really understand until my late 30s. I was always considered mature for my age. I think from the moment my parents left Sudan, I was taken out of childhood and thrust into the real world. I had to be the mature older son whose example would lead my siblings to success. And I took this as a sense of pride growing up. but not realizing the great mental and emotional stress that was put on me. And I didn't acknowledge those feelings until they came up during my walks. I realized that the way I would handle that stress was by overeating. I'd begin to binge eat, but I didn't realize at the time that I wasn't doing it because I was hungry or just enjoyed the food so much. I was just trying to feel some sense of happiness, even if it was for 10 minutes. I was happy and I could forget about my problems during those 10 minutes while I was wolfing down my food. But it's funny, right? Once that food was gone, the issues were still there. And to add to that, now I'd be left feeling guilty and hating myself. I would eat more and more, and to avoid facing those issues and end up hating myself more and more. Like nobody could make me feel worse about myself than I could. My brain was filled with negative thoughts about my body. Shopping, forget that. That was a nightmare. I truly disliked myself while hiding behind a shield of fake self-confidence. I hated myself, but I didn't understand why. I was always a caring, empathetic person when it came to other people, but not to myself. Why? Walking would help me tackle those questions. So over the next 3.5 years, 2,000 hours, 21 million steps, I had to reintroduce myself to me. And with each traumatic experience I unpacked, the lighter I felt, like literally and figuratively. I began to really enjoy myself, love me for me. What started off as something for my daughter ended up being for me. And if I did not take care of myself, I could not take care of my children. And I wanted to be a great example of self-love for my kids. My parents loved me like immensely. They would have cut off a body part for me. I don't blame them at all for not realizing I was going through trauma. They were two young kids themselves from a farming village in a developing country. They didn't have the resources, but guess what? I do. And I need to be better for my kids. Walking helped me lose 120 pounds over 3.5 years. But that isn't even the best thing walking helped me achieve. Walking helped me find myself. Walking helped me heal. Walking helped me love myself. Losing weight was a byproduct of feeling that I deserved to love myself. I truly believe that when you stand up and say, I love myself and I deserve more, there's nothing that can stand in your way. I'm living my dream life by learning to love myself. Now, that day on the scale, it could have broken me. It could have taken me on a worse spiral health-wise. But by the grace of God or my daughter, I knew I was better than that. I made it my goal to figure out who I was. Who is Yonas? I think it's time everyone finds out who they really are. And to my old self, I'm sorry I didn't have your back. I'm sorry I didn't see your sparkle. You deserved patience. You deserved compassion. You deserved a friend. You deserve the world. And I'm sorry I didn't have your back at the time, but I have it now. And not walking isn't even an option anymore. I love my daily walks. It's a chance for me to clear my head and stay centered. Walking is a personal trainer for my brain. Every time I come back from a walk, I come back happier, lighter, calmer. And for all that are struggling and able-bodied, I would recommend putting on your shoes and just going for a 20-minute walk. I call walking the gateway exercise because more often than not, the more you do it, the more confidence you feel, the more you'll want to try other forms of exercise. Those 20 minutes of solace by yourself will do wonders for your mental health. And I want everyone to know that just loving yourself is not reserved for the fit. We all deserve to love ourselves. That's the first step in this journey is guess what? It's to take that first step. And I'm here to help anyone that wants it. You can contact me on Instagram at @WalkWithYoYo, all one word. Let's take back our lives. Let's live it to the fullest. We all deserve to love ourselves. And once you realize that, nothing can stop you. Thank you.
Yonas, really, I was crying during parts of the story. It's so meaningful. And many of the people that we're coaching, our whole approach is to help them to find themselves. So the book that you're going to be part of, the book that your story will be included, finally, the You Will Love, is all about this journey, which I think you would agree is a little different for every person. Like where they'll go in their mind will be different. But you brought up the most important point is that everybody's life brings them to this point. Nobody's life is perfect. We all know that. But you are such a perfect example of taking the time to actually find the person that you were supposed to be, and that you got sidetracked and down other roads and all sorts of challenges and obstacles that you expertly overcame. So how would you start? I know people will be reaching out to you. So how would you start to help them to begin this process of finding yourself, finding the right you that you could love?
I think the first thing is, to acknowledge that, like you said, we're not all perfect, right? That we all do go through some things. And I think, especially this day and age too, with social media and stuff, you look at everybody living their perfect life and you wonder, why not me? But everyone has their issues. Even that person with the 8-pack is self-conscious about something, right? Could be about intelligence. It could be, there's always something good that you can offer the world, right? To take it one day at a time. Find something you love to do. Find an activity that you could do. For me, it was just easy. Walking was just something that, okay, my 2 feet work. Let me just go out there and let me just do this. But maybe it's basketball for you. Maybe it's dancing, whatever it is, just make it something that you could fit into your lifestyle and something that you love to do and something that'll be easy for you. Just make it easy. I walked for 20 minutes. 20 minutes is not really a long time, but it was just around the block. But that was easy. That was something I could say, you know what? I could do that. And then
I think that's a good point. So many people come to us and say, I can't restrict my diet to X calories, and I can't go to a gym for an hour. I can't lift weights. And this is like this self-imposed barrier that you can't, because you can't do something extreme. You can't do anything. We are trying, and you're such a good example, to help people to build out a lifestyle. Forget, we'll talk about food, water, we'll talk about good sleep, we'll talk about stress management, talk about all those great things, hydration, right? But really building all those into something you could get up and do every day, that's the magic, right? It's not hard. If it's really hard, you're not going to do it, or you're not going to do it very long.
Yeah.
Right? So I know you mentioned in the past, I just want to share this, that you could possibly speak to some people on the journey while you're on your walk. Like you could share your walk and their walk, or their chat. Is that something that we could help to arrange so that people could actually speak with you and you could maybe help them ask some questions,
I think that is the end goal for me. Is I want people to join me on these walks. We can share the time together. You might feel alone, but you're not alone. I'm there with you every day. I will walk with you. We can be on Instagram live together. You can look at me, we'll tell stories, but you have a partner. You have somebody that will always have your back, will always support you, who knows the journey you went through or are going through, right? And it's a never ending journey, right? There's no end date, but I've been there.
That would be so wonderful. That would be great. We will help facilitate that. That's what Keto Superheroes is all about. It's a very personal connection with lots of people all over the world, but it's really one-on-one. And we're finding that is much more effective. You all know there are programs that have been trying to help people find themselves, lose weight, get fit for 100 years now, right? The problem is it works for this much time, and then they're unhappy again and they're gaining weight again. We want to take a much more personal, be friends forever kind of thing approach. So I think it would be wonderful for people that fits. I think that you're going to have an onslaught of people. I hope you have a lot of free time.
For my people, I got all the time in the world.
There you go.
This is, I think, my life journey. This is, I think, what I was meant to do.
Yes,
and
we agree with you. So 3 things, Yonas and anybody watching the video. We want to capture Yonas. He has very generously agreed to be captured in some podcasts that we want everyone to get available. So we want to get those out there. So work ahead. There'll be a webpage for Yonas so that you can message with him directly, if not through Instagram, through that. And then finally, 2 things. One is there will be a whole chapter of the upcoming book dedicated to Yonas. You can learn more. Also, it's a 3-book series. The second book, we would like Yonas to have complete focus on his story. There's so much more. His journey, his philosophy, and maybe some probing questions, all sorts of things to help you as kind of a guidebook to your journey. So we're going to have a Yonas Rockstar book coming out soon. And then finally, there are conferences planned where we're hoping that Yonas will appear live so people can interactively ask him questions.
I would love
So
that.
you're going to be a busy man. Your walks are going to turn into power walks and jogs, but
And if I could have a million people walk with me, that would be
fabulous. In all different time zones.
Yeah.
In all different time zones. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the goal. Yonas, we want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your story. We know that it's heartfelt and emotional, and we appreciate that. But every bit of that is going to help who knows how many other people.
Yeah.
So good work.
Thank you very
so
much. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I just want to just let people know that no matter how many times I tell the story, talk about it, like I always still get emotional. You know, you can feel how it still affects you, and that's okay. You know, that's part of you, right? That's who you are. So, you know, don't be scared of that. Don't be scared of being vulnerable. You know, we're all family here, and you know, we're all here to help each other out. So I want everyone to just open yourself up, you know, for new opportunities. You know, you never know what the world has for you.
We'll help. It's always good to have a few bodyguards when you go and do that process, so we can play that role. Thanks again, Yonas. We'll be in touch with you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thanks. Bye. Have a great day.
You too.